What if I told you that one of the most efficient food crops ever cultivated does not require annual replanting, does not demand large fields, and does not rot in storage sheds, and yet was quietly pushed to the margins of agriculture anyway? What if I told you this plant stores itself underground, survives winter without intervention, and reappears every year without asking for permission, fertilizer schedules, or seed catalogs? And what if I told you that for centuries, this crop was considered more reliable than potatoes in times of scarcity? Not because it tasted better, but because it could not be easily destroyed, confiscated, or fully exhausted. That last part matters. Because potatoes became the backbone of food systems precisely because they could be standardized, controlled, stored centrally, and monetized at scale. This crop could not. It spreads in small beds. It resists eradication. It feeds families quietly and persistently, even when fields are abandoned or supply chains fail. Once, it was intentionally cultivated by indigenous communities, adopted by European farmers, and studied by early agronomists as a famine-resistant staple. Today, it is treated as a novelty at best, a nuisance at worst, something you are warned not to plant, not to trust, not to rely on. That reversal was not accidental. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what this crop is, why it was systematically sidelined, and who benefited from replacing it with crops that demand constant dependence. This channel examines ordinary things that quietly shape human survival, food, systems, and incentives, through documented history and economic reality. We are truth-driven and fact-based. We do not repeat official narratives without examining who profits from them. We follow the money. We expose what was buried when it became inconvenient. Nothing here relies on speculation or outrage. Everything is rooted in verifiable incentives and historical records. Subscribing is not about supporting a personality. It is about maintaining access to analysis that challenges comfortable assumptions before they harden into unquestioned belief. The crop in question is Jerusalem artichoke, also known as sunchoke, Helianthus tuberosus. This is not about culinary trends or alternative diets. This is about agricultural reality and historical record. Before you dismiss it as a niche tuber or a digestive curiosity, understand this clearly. The way this plant has been framed is not the full story. Jerusalem artichoke is not an artichoke. It is not from Jerusalem. It is a perennial sunflower that produces underground tubers capable of feeding people for generations from single planting. Its decline in mainstream agriculture was not due to poor yield or unreliability. It was due to the fact that it undermines centralized control over food. Jerusalem artichoke's defining characteristic is its storage system. Unlike potatoes, which store starch, Jerusalem artichoke stores inulin, a complex carbohydrate that the human body processes differently. Inulin does not spike blood glucose. It feeds beneficial gut bacteria and supports metabolic regulation. Nutritionally, the tubers provide prebiotic fiber, inulin, supporting gut microbiome health, iron, and potassium, essential for circulation and cellular function, vitamin B1, critical for energy metabolism, low glycemic load, making it suitable for metabolic conditions functionally. This places Jerusalem artichoke in direct competition with refined carbohydrate staples, fiber supplements, blood sugar regulating food products agriculturally. It requires no annual seed stock. Tubers left in the ground overwinter naturally. New plants emerge without cultivation. Harvest can be staggered over months directly from the soil. This makes it cheap, decentralized, resilient, and extremely difficult to monopolize. Those properties are not celebrated in modern agriculture. They are discouraged. If Jerusalem artichoke grows densely in small beds, stores itself underground, reappears every year, and provides stable nutrition, why is it absent from modern staple food systems? Why did potatoes take its place? To answer that, we have to examine history without nostalgia and without excuses. Pre-colonial period indigenous peoples of North America cultivated Jerusalem artichoke extensively. It was valued because it could be harvested selectively, hidden from raiders, and sustained communities through harsh winters. 17th to 18th centuries European settlers adopted the crop quickly. It spread through France, Germany, and parts of Eastern Europe as a famine-resistant food. Agronomists documented its productivity in small plots. 19th century potatoes rose as a preferred staple due to higher starch content, uniformity, and compatibility with centralized storage and taxation systems. Key economic shift potatoes could be counted, stored, transported, and controlled. Jerusalem artichokes could not be fully harvested, fully eradicated, or fully owned once planted. Early 20th century industrial agriculture prioritized crops compatible with mechanization, chemical inputs, and market standardization. Jerusalem artichoke failed those criteria. It was not banned. It was ignored. Narratives replaced facts. Jerusalem artichoke was labeled invasive, unreliable, digestively problematic, unsuitable for serious agriculture. Language did the work that law did not. Digestive effects of inulin were exaggerated without context, while similar effects in legumes and fibers were normalized. The plant was framed as troublesome rather than resilient, unmanageable rather than independent. This framing served a purpose, discouraging widespread adoption without requiring formal prohibition. The consequences were structural. Communities lost access to a perennial, low-input staple food systems, became more vulnerable to single-crop failure. Dependency on annual planting and storage infrastructure increased. During food shortages, potatoes failed catastrophically. Jerusalem artichoke did not. The decision to sideline it narrowed resilience and amplified risk. Cost paid not by institutions, but by ordinary people. Modern research confirms what history already demonstrated. Jerusalem artichoke yields consistently in poor soils. Its nutritional profile supports metabolic health. Concerns over invasiveness are manageable with basic harvesting practices in regions where it has been reintroduced. It performs exactly as described: persistent, productive, and reliable. The earlier dismissals do not withstand evidence. The beneficiaries are not abstract. Seed producers selling annual potato stock, industrial farms, dependent on mechanized harvesting, storage, and distribution systems optimized for centralized crops. A plant that stores itself underground and replants itself reduces dependence across the entire chain. That is why it remains marginal. This was never about taste. It was never about safety. And it was never about productivity. It was about control, predictability, and profit. You were not misinformed by chance. You were guided toward crops that fit systems of dependence rather than resilience. Jerusalem artichoke was not replaced because it failed. It was replaced because it refused to comply. Do not accept this explanation alone. Read historical crop manuals. Examine yield data. Grow Jerusalem artichoke in a small bed and observe what happens year after year. Then ask the only question that matters. Who benefits when food must be replanted, repurchased, and reauthorized every season? If this kind of examination matters, engage. Comment with findings. Support spaces where uncomfortable truths are allowed to surface. Resilient food does not announce itself. It waits underground until someone remembers why it mattered.